Well, economic development is one of the key parts of the ABD Conference and Expo coming up. Well, May the 17th, so it's almost upon us. And one of our panelists is Davis Beman. And Davis, you've been now with Blanchard and Calhoun Commercial Real Estate for how many years?
About 13 years now.
Okay, and 18 total in your career. And I noticed a bit of a rebrand, which is really exciting. And I was mentioning to Geraldine, who works with you at Blanchard and Calhoun, what strikes me about it is it's gold, and it's about good service and quality and an extra level of service. Is that what you're striving for?
Absolutely. So the gold is basically goes to my background at Georgia Tech.
Okay.
Gold and black are obviously the colors of Georgia Tech. We probably should have infused some navy in there, but we left that off.
As long as you didn't have red,
that's right? That's right. We try to stay away from that. And obviously, Blanchard Calhoun uses those colors, they intertwine with us really well. But
of course,
what we're doing is with the same partnership. So I came on board about 13 years ago with Blanchard's. They were looking, as they were selling out of a commercial development firm, they were looking to restart a brokerage firm. And so I had started my career previous to that with another commercial company and built up a small portfolio. So it was a good segue for us. It also involved my father, who has been in real estate for 50 years. He's been in a partnership with the Blanchards for 49 of that. So that was a good segue, and it's been a tremendous platform for me to come in and restart the brokerage development.
Well, it looks like you have three pillars, rather, that you focus on. And let's start with the top, investment. How has it changed with investors, maybe just since COVID? What have you noticed?
Yeah. So I'll point out in all three of those services, we're really client-based. Our business model, we don't just sell shopping centers. We don't just sell land. What we like to do is be really client-centric. And what I mean by that, our business model is, I want to try to sell you something. I want to then, after procurement of the property, I want to then manage. I've set expectations by putting you into a property. I want to meet those expectations. And that's through management. That's through a hands-on leasing approach. Obviously, all the intangibles, marketing, things like that we're very well equipped to do. So really, soup to nuts, we're not just a brokerage firm. We're client-centered to provide all those services. The first one being investments. That's where I spend a lot of my time. Is I come to you or a client that has a need, either has money or needs to sell a property and wants to reinvest to create some cash flow. And so we look at their needs. We figure out the risk threshold, sort of the critical components of where they are in their life. A 70-year-old person doesn't really want to restart 20 years of debt service, whereas somebody at my age at 40 wants to, jump in the game, leverage themselves, whether they have cash or not. And so, we define what the need is, and then we work through an investment structure, which leads into the management and brokerage.
Yeah. So let's look at where the market is at, I suppose. And I mentioned COVID earlier. Not everyone is in their workstations, right? How have you been able to manage through that? And what's the supply and demand like of various space?
Yeah. So the nice thing, what I basically tell people all the time, we're a boutique brokerage management company. We play in the land world, the industrial world, the flex world, the office, and the retail world. The retail world, actually, most people going into COVID thought that would kill it. And a lot of the retail has come out actually more positive, more brick and mortar type stuff, just in different ways. Restaurant inside space is smaller, outside space is larger. They're recognizing that they don't have to heat and cool that space, and people like to sit outside. They feel more secure, especially during the COVID distancing and things like that.
So then, Davis, what about smaller office space versus larger office space?
Yeah, so on the office, that's probably been the hardest hit industry. Small office in the 500 to 2,500 square foot range has done extremely well in all subsets of Augusta and really nationwide. There's a lack of product there. On the larger office side, You've seen companies, and I'll stay away from naming them, but across the river, 60,000 square feet has come on the market. Right up Washington Road, a call center left, 80,000 square feet.
Wow.
Those two projects alone were about 700 people, 800 people.
Right.
And so what's happening is those people are going to work from home. But also what's happening is the retail and the ancillary businesses surrounding that big location are suffering too. Mm-hmm. So it definitely has a ripple effect. But like 5-7 years ago, we were reinventing how to fill these big box spaces in retail centers. We're now trying to figure out, okay, how do we backfill these large office boxes?
Yeah.
And that's where we are. And there's a gluttony of it on the market. It's not significant just for Augusta. That's an industry problem.
And we're continuing with Davis Beman, and it is BemanGroup.com as the website. Is that right? Again, in partnership with Blanchard and Calhoun. And I have to pat you on the back a little bit. You've redeveloped a shopping center that my 9-year-old loves because she loves toys at Riverwatch Parkway and Old Evans Road, and it looks fantastic.
Right.
And I'm just excited about the redevelopment. Are those fun projects, and do you do a lot of that?
They are. We don't do the construction. When we say development, we're in the management, the leasing, and then just sort of the overall investment strategy. And so we're advising that owner, banks to use, contractors to use,
right,
subs, all the like. So we have seen it go from a C+ location to an A location.
Oh, yeah.
Hobbytown has just moved in. They're doing gangbusters.
Yeah.
In fact, they're doing so well, they just leased the space next to them.
Break.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
That's
Breaking
right.
news. And as I recall, the owner, I think wanted an area to be able to showcase some of the remote control toys. Is that
That's
right?
Yeah. They want to create some vertical retail aspects to that space.
Yeah.
But also possibly, and I don't want to get into too much.
Yeah, of course.
Overshoot his announcement at some point in time. But he wants to have a service in there that you can come and play. I'll put it that way.
No, that's fair. Yeah.
And so he's got a retail operation, a wholesale operation, but also trying to create something that's very interactive for his customer base.
That's excellent. And again, investment management and brokerage, and that it seems to me that would be enough to keep Davis busy. But for the last 8.5 years, you've been involved at the airport. Share a little bit about that and maybe what growth could be happening in terms of land there.
Yeah. So about 8.5 years ago, Grady Smith, who was a commissioner at the time, came to me, and somebody had made a recommendation. Hey, Davis would be a great person. I was pretty young at the time. I didn't think I would get it, but lo and behold, he called me up and he said, hey, the first meeting is, I think, in 2 weeks. So he appointed me to the airport commission, and John Clark, who succeeded him, and then Wayne Guilfoy actually appointed me. It was on the agenda yesterday. He texted me yesterday morning to remind me it was on there. I'd forgotten. But anyway, I appreciate their faith in me to be a servant for the city, really. What I'm doing there is providing leadership, but specifically in the real estate arena. Look at the airport knows how to run an airport, general aviation and commercial aviation. And there's a lot of dollars and cents there, and they know that game very well. What they're trying to figure out is how to monopolize or monetize all the land and resources around it.
Right.
And so several years back, they created the General Perry Parkway and about 50, 60 acres surrounding that access point. And over the last 5 years or so, we've been trying to figure out how can the FAA approve a taxiway and get access from the airport over to that land so it can be developed. So that's a resource that we can provide to whoever it might be, that whether they're an airplane mechanic or just some airplane-centric business that wants to house something there, produce something there, or just be general distribution. It might be UPS. It might be something of that nature.
Related somehow to transportation. And
Correct.
Now, so this is now part of the opportunity zone. And explain the process of how that works and maybe funding, if you know.
So Opportunity Zone was created by Tim Scott, a representative from South Carolina, looking to grow ergonomically areas that had either been undeveloped, sort of blighted, or kind of skipped over. So obviously the airport's not a place that's been skipped over, but maybe hasn't benefited from some of the other industrial developments. So we created this area and provided the resources of access, gas lines, power, and all of the like to make it pad ready for somebody to come in. So where the Opportunity Zone plays into that, you can sell, trade out of any capital investment. Could be stocks, could be real estate. And you take that money through an Opportunity Zone and reinvest it. You're fixed in for 10 years. There's some penalties to breaking that. But then you have to spend $1.01 more than what you invested into the land. And that creates vertical construction, or as it applies to downtown, just reinventing some of these older buildings that have sat delinquent for a while.
And there's money available.
Plenty of money available. Yeah, and it's a pretty good financial stack to take advantage of.
That's fantastic.
On top of TADs and enterprise zones and things like that.
Okay. Tim Scott, that's the fellow who wants to be president.
That's
huh?
right. That's right. I think he's got a pretty good chance. I'm not endorsing him now.
No, but hey,
it's
good to know. That's good to know that he's trying to help out some of the areas that need some help.
I've got a very good friend who is representing him from a consulting side, a guy named Matt Moore, and it's he says he's very enterprise centric. I mean, he's wanting to grow businesses, not government.
Yeah,
and I think most of us can appreciate that.
Speaking of growing, look into the crystal ball a little bit. How do you see the rest of 2024 going in the commercial real estate market? Yeah,
I think interest rates are going to hurt us, continue to hurt us a little bit from an investment grade level through the third quarter this year. They raised the rates 0.25% yesterday, and they're doing that. And that's generally about a 12, 14-month trailing period.
Gotcha.
They're taming inflation and all those sorts of things. I think fourth quarter of this year, folks will realize kind of the stabilization of that adjustment and have the confidence to jump back in the market. We're finding there's plenty of money on the sideline. It's just investor confidence. What's going to happen and how am I going to adjust to that? And just like you're in my pocketbook at home, I want cash in my pocket to be able to adjust to unforeseen expenses. And so that's how people are approaching the investment market.
Interesting. And before we scoot, any particular pockets of the CSRA that you feel are going to be a good value coming up? We're recording from downtown Augusta. There's Grovetown, there's Evans. What are your thoughts on pockets?
Yeah, so I like downtown Augusta. I like the historic nature, and I think the rates are coming up so that we can redevelop something that may have cost a little bit more in the past. So I like downtown and hope that we can build more of an office retail structure, more than just the hospitality that's done very well down here, the restaurants and the hotels. So from that standpoint, I think there's good growth. West Augusta is still your office market, and it's extremely hot, and there's a very little supply there. So hopefully people will start building in that areas.
He must have been a fortune teller because he's been located on Davis Road in West Augusta now for many years. So, and he'd be a good person to sort of chat with if you have interest in investing or perhaps in the management or brokerage of properties that you have. And again, the website, which is being retooled.
Right.
Is BemanGroup.com.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, It's been a pleasure, and so looking forward to having you be on the panel to talk more about economic development.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it, and as always, we're consumers of that panel and look to learn from all the other folks. So we're really excited. You've got a good cast of, I'll call them characters up there, including myself.
Derek May, good man from Azalea
worked
Investments.
With him several years. Yeah.
Bob Bigger from SRP Federal Credit Union, who took on a big role with them. And then a gentleman, Steve Claiborne, who did all the contract management and purchasing for SRS and Fort Gordon on supply chain, which affects real estate.
I'm not sure how I got in there, but I look forward to making sure I meet all those folks.
You'll be just fine. Thank you, Davis. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate it.
Okay.